keep that in mind. I got caught once out of 3 years. I don't want it to happen again. And if it does, shame on you. Shame on me the first time. So when we go into the questions, the candidates will have 1 minute to answer the questions. And I want to share with you that the candidates actually have a new option today, which is a color-coded challenge card. Each candidate has 2 challenge cards, so if during the course of the discussion, one of the candidates says something that you strongly disagree with, you have opposing facts you want to share, raise your challenge card. However, the point is you have 2 challenge cards. I will take your challenge card after each challenge, and when you run out, you're out of challenge. So use those challenge cards wisely. All right. And then at the end, the candidates will have 2 minutes to give us a 2-minute summary, and then we'll try to get everybody out the door by 8:30-ish, all right? So I went over the challenge cards. You all got that. And then timekeeping is, Frank here will be keeping us on track and on time. So what you'll see is that when you have, for example, when we do the 3-minute introduction, and you have 30 seconds left, you will get the yellow flag. And that means you're coming around the corner, and you better speed it up because 30 seconds later, up goes the red flag. And if you continue talking, I will move closer to you and closer to you. And then I got this big hook with the next gun, and we'll try to pull that on. So all we ask is that we try to abide by the time so we can actually respect everybody's time limit here and get stuff through. So, and then when we get into the actual 1-minute section, the yellow one comes up at 10 seconds, and then the red one when it's over. So, I believe we are ready to begin. We know that we are ready to rock and roll. Do we have the filming set? All right, folks. Oh, the last thing I got to ask is, based on my previous experience, is I need to ask that we try to keep the side chatter down. It's okay if you want to just kind of whisper to your neighbor and stuff like that, but if the discussion gets too loud where it's disrupting the candidates, I will casually walk over next to you and ask you to please hold it down or take it outside, because everybody wants to hear what's being said. The last thing is, and Frank is absolutely right, is that many of you have these rectangular electronic thingies in your pockets, purses, and in your suit coats, whatever. If you don't, you're a fortunate individual. If you happen to have one of these, please turn it on silence or turn it on vibrate so it doesn't interrupt the candidates while they're speaking. If yours happens to go off while we are having this discussion, I will ask for a $20 donation, voluntary $20 donation to a nonprofit, a local nonprofit of our choice, which will be
Kitsap Rescue Mission.
Kitsap Rescue Mission, which is a wonderful choice. We will not hunt you down, we will not track you, it's completely honorary. But the bottom line is you're much easier just to simply turn these buggers off, okay? All right, so with that said, welcome to the Bremerton Chamber's Eggs and Issues. I'm Joe Roszak. I am a Chamber board member, and I want to welcome you. And we are going to get started with an exciting event for this morning. So with our 3-minute introductions, Randy, I'd like you to begin this, and we'll just work our way down. Please.
Thank you, Joe. Welcome, everybody. Good morning. My name is Randy Boss. I'm running for position 2 in the 26th Legislative District. I'll give you some brief history of me. I don't want to use up the whole 3 minutes. Vietnam veteran, Bronze Star winner, U.S. Army 1969, where I learned everything I needed to know in life. Got me through life, and I'm very proud to be a veteran. Moved to Gig Harbor in 1980. I've been in Gig Harbor for 38 years with my wife and 4 kids. While I was in Gig Harbor, my kids were growing up, and there were no parks in town. So I joined the Parks Department. Well, my first political appointment is an election. And as a Parks Department, I was able to create the new Sable Homestead Park. If you've been to Gig Harbor, we actually invented the Metropolitan Park District in Gig Harbor before I got that done. There was only one other metropolitan park in the state, and that was in Tacoma, because they had a 50,000 population requirement in order to become a Metro Parks. So we used the Metro Parks Department to create the Metropolitan Park District. We also did the Cushman Trail at the same time. The Tacoma Power Line goes through town, of course, and into Key Peninsula. And I got the city of Tacoma to grant access to that trail. At the time, it was a maintenance road. We've turned it into one of the greatest trails in Washington State. We're very proud of that project. At the same time, I worked with the city of Tacoma and the city of Gay Harbor and with the Metropolitan Park District. We acquired the Tacoma Narrows Airport and the Madrona Golf Course as properties for the Metropolitan Park District. So we own the airport, and we own the park, and we own the golf course. So this is some of the things that I've done as a community member in Gay Harbor. I'm also on governor appointee to the Tacoma Narrows Advisory Commission, and we have been working, I have been personally working on that project for the last 15 years to make sure the tolls are set. Jesse Young and I worked last year in the legislative arena to get the tolls capped on the Tacoma Narrows Bridge, and I'm very proud of that effort, and we're going to continue to work on that for next year. So, welcome this morning. I really welcome your conversations and your questions. I look forward to hearing from you. Thank you. Thank you. Michelle?
Well, good morning, everyone. For the record, I'm State Representative Michelle Collier, proudly serving the 26th Legislative District. This is my 4th year here in Columbia, and I'm now seeking a 3rd term, because each term is 2 years. Before I got into politics, I was a nursing home dentist, and I donated almost over $1 million of care to folks in nursing homes and also children in Jamaica and Honduras. And I came down to Olympia 5 years ago because the state cut adult dental Medicaid. And I came down to advocate for my nursing home folks and was able to help get adult dental Medicaid reinstated. And I decided to run for office. So since that time, while I've been in the legislature, we have had some serious lifts that we've had to do. One of those is the McCleary fix. And while we were able to fix how we fund K-12 education, in addition, I also worked to help reform the foster care system. And there's still quite a bit of work to do. We still need to work to fix how we fund school construction, how we making sure that we do reforms with Western States Hospital and our RHCs, and also making sure that we have adequate funding for mental health. So I would be honored to serve a 3rd term, and I look forward to your questions, and thank you very much for being here.
Thank you, Michelle. Marco, please.
Hey, good morning.
Yeah.
Well, good morning, everyone. I want to thank the Burlington Chamber of Commerce for this opportunity. Thank you. My name is Marco Padilla, and I'm running this year because as a Navy veteran who swore to protect the American people at all costs, I know it's my duty at this specific moment in time to stand up to the divisive rhetoric, the divisive politics that are not only coming out of the labor, but also from Washington, D.C. This is the political climate that we live in. And I don't know about you, but I'm honestly tired of this. We can't get the McCleary Act fixed. Things very common, very common sense, but we cannot fix that because we can't agree with each other. Politicians right now are trying to find differences with each other. They're trying to prove that they are better than the other candidates, and they are forgetting about you, who they should be truly representing. So this is why I'm running. I was born in Mexico. In 1990, I was brought to Texas. My parents moved to Texas. 1994, they overstayed their visa because of the broken immigration system that we still have. So I became undocumented. My sister and I grew up undocumented, my teenage years. I didn't cry out for any help, for any assistance. I assimilated. I tried to do my duty, to do my part with the community. Got involved in church youth leadership programs. I was just trying to be involved and be positive and seek opportunities. When I was 22 years old, I married my wife, who was a U.S. citizen, so I became a resident. I always had this passion of serving the Navy. I was a senior when 9/11 happened, so all my buddies went, after graduation, they all served. They went in and served our country, and I couldn't. So finally, at 24, I joined the Navy, and I did 8 years in the Navy. Through multiple deployments and operations and missions, I was able to complete a bachelor's degree and a master's degree. Travel all over the world, see what works and see what I saw what doesn't. I came back to Texas, my last duty station in San Antonio in 2016. As I got out of the Navy, I saw there was a need for Hispanic leaders. I saw there was no organization that was currently active, so I implemented a nonprofit organization called Latino Veterans in Action. It's a 501c3. With the attempt, the idea here is to foster civic engagement, civic participation with the Latino veterans, so we could go back into Hispanic communities and help at-risk youth. I moved to the Pacific Northwest. It was always my dream to be here. Right now, I'm currently completing I'm a doctorate student at Seattle University, doing a doctorate degree in educational leadership focused on public leadership. I came here to the Pacific Northwest, to Bremerton specifically. I've been involved in the community. I'm part of the Kitsap County Veterans Advisory Board, Kitsap County Commission on Children and Youth. And I implemented a nonprofit called Bremerton Visionaries to foster networking between young professionals here in Bremerton. So I bring a diverse background. I bring a unique approach to things, and that's why I know I can represent you. This is what we need right now in New England, is civility and a different approach. Thank you.
Thank you, Marco. 3 minutes, please.
3 minutes, okay. I'll try to stay within that 3 minutes. Hello, everybody. Thank you for coming. Good morning. Thank you, Chamber, for inviting us out to do this. My name is Joyce Stanford. I'm a mom, I'm a health educator, and a substitute teacher. What makes me want to do something like this? To run really hard to get a job that a few people want, but most people don't. For me, it was watching my seniors, because I worked with seniors for the last 14 years with Medicare and Medicaid, and understanding how they are feeling scared. It's my students. As a substitute teacher, when you see kids that are doing active shooter drills in school, there's a fear, and they're living in fear. Why are they living in fear? Where's Social Security going to be? Where's Medicare going to be? Where's the gun laws going to be? All these top issues for all these folks who feel marginalized. I wanted to be that voice for those people. As a person that wants to be that voice, what does that mean? That means you're going to go to work. You're going to do the work that needs to be done to try to collaborate with everyone in Olympia and make sure that we're getting stuff done. We're not just standing around arguing and talking about it. We're not pulling together committees. We're actually working and getting stuff done. We may not always agree, but we're going to come to some sort of common ground so that the people in the 26th district, as well as the people in Washington State, have something to look forward to. Happy, healthy lives, especially in our District 26. I worked for Group Health for 10 years as a Medicare sales consultant. I've worked for 4 years, 4 school year seasons in the Peninsula School District. I support my students, I support my seniors, I love it. I'm a mom of 3 kids. My daughter is an acupuncturist, Chinese medicine doctor. I've got a middle son who's a vice president of coaching and education out in Illinois for a soccer program for kids. And then my youngest who just graduated from Peninsula High School, who I'm very proud of. And I'm a mom. I'm not a career politician. I am very genuine, very passionate, and very real. I heard it was fake, so I want to put that out there. Very real. And I'm going to say what everybody's thinking in the room. I'll say it. So I hope that I can earn the votes of the folks in the 26th district, and that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Joy. All right, so now we move on to questions that have been selected and generated by our audience members, which we have quite a diverse selection of topics. We're actually going to start off with some infrastructure questions. Remember, this is a 1-minute response. Yellow goes up with 10 seconds, and then you have to wrap up your response. So the question is, starting with Michelle, since we had Randy lead off today. Michelle, the question is for you to start. Please, what do you see as a priority and a fix for the SR 16, SR 3 congestion issues?
Well, thank you very much for that question. Basically, one of the biggest problems that we have in Olympia is that there is a coalition of King County in the legislature where they are able to get more of their fair share of funding for projects, for transportation projects. And so basically, one of the big things that we have to do is make sure we're getting our fair share in the 26th district. And for example, we did a work group regarding the Tacoma Narrows Bridge. And the work group, we all came up and we all came together, the people who are on either side of the bridge, saying, let's get $125 million. That is our fair share for what we should have gotten to help offset the tolls. Instead, I had one of my opponents working with my seatmate to instead get a loan that cost $19.4 million for a loan. That's how much it will cost. So unfortunately, unless we can get people working together for the 26th district, we will not be able to get our fair share for Highway 16.
Thank you, Michelle. Marco, please, same question.
Well, folks, I think you just heard the answer. Within all parties, you can't even come to a conclusion of working together because you have someone who is trying to take someone else out because it's all political, right? This is why we need a different approach. This is why we need someone who's not going to be beholden to a party specifically, to a specific agenda. And you need someone, right now, we need someone in our district that is going to represent you, us. Someone who's going to have leverage over other legislators. By not caucusing with any party, my vote is going to have a lot of weight. My vote is going to be a swing vote. People are going to want to come work with me. So that's how I can truly find a solution to this. And many other issues that we have here. Thank you.
Thank you, Marco. Joy, please.
So we've got a couple of different entities that are working not together collaboratively, but independently in Kitsap and in Pierce. If we brought those two entities together, what are you doing in Pierce? What are you doing in Kitsap? Let's come together. Let us understand what you're doing. You're not working in a silo. Again, there's that collaborative work group bringing that together. I think that could be the start of a solid solution for the SR 16 and 3 solution.
Thank you. Randy, please.
Well, I hope most of you know that for the last 15 years, I've been a dogged opponent to tolls on the Tacoma Narrows Bridge. Michelle and I sat on the same committee this last fall, and at that committee, they recommended a $125 million contribution from the state to buy down the difference between where the tolls are now and where they're going to go. I went down to Olympia with that thought process and interviewed 15 or 20 people in transportation in Olympia and said, if I ask you to give us $125 million, what will you say? Not just no, hell no, you're not getting $125 million. So Jesse and I worked collaboratively together to come up with a plan and a bill that could get passed this year that cost $185 million, and it was a loan that gets paid back at the end of the period. But what you received was a cap on the tolls. That's what we're talking about, getting action and fixing problems out of Olympia. Thank you.
Michelle, you are next, and also the challenge card. So,
Yes, so the work group said, let's come together. The first ask is going to be $125 million. We knew that for the supplemental budget, that was not actually going to happen. So the second ask, they said that's round one, because this is how the negotiating works. Second ask is $17 million for this year with future obligations to do the $125 million. Instead of having people come together, making sure that we get our fair share, there was a deal cut along the side. And so instead there was a loan. So that means $0 coming from the legislature to us. So you have to sit there and think,
Why on earth would the King County folks ever give that up? We're now asking, we have people coming together saying, we want nothing from you. Instead, let's get a loan for $85 million. That loan will cost $19.4 million to pay off. And I'm sorry, but that is not a good deal.
Thank you, Michelle. And Randy, you have the opportunity of challenging the challenge for 1 minute.
As I said, and as everyone has said at this board, when you get to Olympia, you have to collaborate and cooperate in order to get something done. $125 million was a non-starter. If we would have settled on that solution, you would have a toll increase coming in against your car in July of this year, another dollar toll increase. What we were able to do was to cap that toll now until the end of the toll period, and then pay back that loan. What Jesse and I plan on doing this next session is to start attacking the $85 million loan. You get what you can get when you can get it, and believe me, a dollar increase was coming in July, and we have capped those tolls, and we will not see a toll increase again until the end of the toll period, and then it'll all be gone. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else care to capitalize on? Wait, it's an open, okay, no follow-ups on the challenge. Very good. So now we move on to the next question on infrastructure, and this goes to Marco, please. The question is, ferry service. What do we need to do about ferry service? Kind of open-ended. I guess you can start your life.
I don't know, yeah. Well, we have to make sure they're reliable, start off. So for that, we need to make sure that they have an equitable, sustainable funding, and that they continue to be provided with the resources necessary to operate. I mean, I don't know, I don't want to go into details specifically. You could upgrade, the commodities of it, right? But who's going to pay for that? People are going to have to pay for that. So right now, I guess just the only approach to begin with would be to make sure that we're working with other legislators to find that funding, so it's just a sustainable funding for ferry services. There was something that I was thinking last time as well, and I find it interesting that people in King County and Kitsap, invest all this money in leasing the services. Yet that goes directly into Washington State Department of Transportation, and those funds that are generated from there are used to build roads across, in eastern Washington and other places. So I think we need someone in there to fight for us to get that money back here in our district as well.
Thank you. Joe?
As someone who used to take the ferries for a very long time, and was a part of ferry service being down, all of a sudden you have to take a bus, and you're taking the bus all the way around. This kind of piggybacks on the last question we had on infrastructure, because I sat in traffic for sometimes 3 hours on 16 and 3, or 5 and 16. So I believe that the ferries need to be treated like we treat our highways. And so with that said, what does that look like? That means we are treating the ferry highway, the waterway, just like we do the freeway. New and better fueled ferries would be a good start. Newer ferries, who's going to pay for that? We've got to find, like Mark said, some sustainable funding and not keep pushing an increase of fares on the consumer. Ferry prices rose the entire time I was taking it, so yeah, that would be my idea.
Thank you. Randy?
I see Larry Sequist is here today. Good morning, Larry. Larry and I worked on the ferry system for years. It's almost unfixable. It starts with a $90 million ferry that is sole sourced basically by one company. We need to get competitive bidding available to everyone in this state to build our own ferries. But that's not the solution. The solution, I believe, is to expand on the fast ferry. Park your car here, get on the fast ferry for an hour to get to Seattle, Seattle will be very happy not to have your cars on their roads. Get back on the ferry, come back, get in your car and go home. That's the, I think, the future of the ferry system. I know that we've been stuck in here with a $45 million transit debt. And my position is going to be that the state take over that transit debt and expand on a system that's going to be reliable and work in a number of different areas and different ports that would be available for people on this side and that side to get back and forth across the water. Thank you.
Well, it's obvious that someone has never tried to take that fast ferry, because every single time I have, it has been down. And so the fast ferries is not the solution to fixing our ferry issues. The biggest problem that we have with the ferries is that it's expensive to run a boat. We only have 2 ferry runs in our state that are actually generating money. The rest of them, the fares do not account for the cost of running the ferry. It's quite frankly, it's incredibly expensive. In addition, we also need to have reforms within the Department of Transportation. There's a huge management issue going on within the Department of Transportation. We've seen it over and over again. While I've been in Olympia for the last 4 years, they have turned over staff numerous times. So I'll be working on one person on certain issues. They'll make, make promises to me that things are going to come through, and then they're gone. And so that's one of the biggest things that we need to fix on.
All right, and I'm going for all the questions on that. I'm going to have 4 folks. You got to.
We can't, we would like you all to use the mic.
Request from the audience for microphone for all, please. So, Marco, did you answer the ferry question? Okay, Mike, I'm correct. So, Joy, this is your question. You get to lead us off on the last question on infrastructure. Do you think the Ruckle House Institute study will result in any significant changes to the Growth Management Act?
I'm going to request that. Hello? I tried to turn it off. I don't think it. So I tried to look this up because this came up at the last exit issues. And I was like, I had it spelled all wrong. And I just found out the correct spelling. So I'm going to pass this down to Mr. Voss because I can't speak to that because I looked up the wrong information. Thank you for that. It's a start.
Thank you. 2017, Ruckles House came out with a report on the current UDMA Growth Management Act, and has, in the Ruckles House version, is now trying to not only control housing and growth and how we are forced into little cubicle houses in the city urban areas, instead of allowing us to go to areas that are more enjoyable and more family friendly outside of those city core. The Ruckles House report now is fostering plans to include stuff like greenhouse gases. What the heck does that have to do with the Growth Management Act? If you look at the amendment to the Ruckles House report, there's an entire page of new obligations that are going to be tacked on to the Growth Management Act. My solution is to basically throw the Growth Management Act out and start all over and provide housing, affordable land so we can build affordable houses in this district. Thank you.
And Michelle, please, same question.
So the Growth Management Act in Olympia is what we would call the Holy Grail. And what I mean by that is that this is something that the Democrats will fight tooth and nail to reform. And when the Growth Management Act was passed, the whole point was to make it so that the development was done in more urban areas, and we can preserve some of the wildlife. The problem is that it is so difficult to build that we are not able to keep up with the demands. And that is one of the biggest reasons as to why our we have such a huge housing shortage in our area because builders are not able to build to keep up with the demands of the population. This last year, one of the biggest issues was whether or not we can actually build schools where kids live. So this was all part of the Growth Management Act. We fought heavily for that. We were able to win. But this is something that is extremely partisan and will take a lot of work to fix. And I don't think the Ruckle House thing will fix.
Thank you, Michelle. And Mark.
Well, like State Representative Michelle Calder was saying, it needs to be a collaborative effort to find solutions to this issue, eliminate the red tape, work with the local developing companies, for example, in this case, Onwest Group, allow them the ability to build. It's a lot of bureaucracy, it's a lot of red tape, and then it comes back to the same thing. So you can't agree, Democrats against Republicans. You cannot agree on a simple issue that's going to benefit everyone. I, like you, want to unlock the potential that we have here in the peninsula while still mitigating, the rising housing prices and taking care of the vulnerable and the underrepresented. But I think going in there with this collaborative approach, finding commonalities with others, are going to allow us to work with local developers and eliminate those red tapes so we can build in the peninsula. Thank you.
Thank you, Marco. Okay, next question goes to Randy. We start off a new category here, taxes. There you go, sir. So the question is, where do you stand on taxing capital gains or any form of income tax?
None, zero, no new taxes. We have plenty of money in the state of Washington, as was exposed during the last budget. At the end of the day, when we were supposed to be out of money, they found another $770 million to pay teacher salaries without raising taxes. We don't need new money. We need new plans. We need a better way. We need more accountability. And Olympia and our tax system right now is broken. Everyone knows about the B&O tax, where you have to pay, whether you make any money or not, you have to pay tax